Hello, students. This is Mr. Martirone. We are finishing up our causes of the French Revolution. All right, so when we left off in class, we were talking about the financial crisis that plagued France leading up to the French Revolution. So we had a huge discussion on deficit spending, the idea that government will spend more money than it takes in. The French ministry had an option. They could either raise taxes or decrease spending or both. And we said the nobles were very much opposed to any sort of tax increase because they didn't want to end their tax-free status. Additionally, in the 1780s, leading into the 1790s, there were droughts in successive summers that yielded bad harvests for the farmers. As a result, a lot of the harvest and the farmers, they had to increase their prices so they could make a living. So as a result, what happens is the people living in Paris and outside of the city are struggling just to get by. They're struggling even to have and purchase a loaf of bread. So these are the three major causes of the financial crisis in France leading up to the revolution. So more problems for France. So the Estates General, what is it? In your notes, I want you to highlight that the Estates General is the government of France. It is the legislative body and is only called when the king summons it. So Louis XVI, realizing that the country was in trouble, summons the Estates General for the first time since 1614. And there he tells the three estates, the clergy, the nobles, and the commoners, to prepare what's called a carriere. And a carriere is simply a leather-bound book that has a list of grievances that they want the king to redress. And this does not go well. And if you think about any time in history that you're asked to address concerns, the three estates just end up complaining to the king, and Louis XVI isn't the leader that you want to have in the type of crisis. So what ends up happening is there is a problem. The three estates get one vote. Each estate gets one vote in the Estates General. And if anyone can do the math, you can see that the third estate is always blocked 2-1. And the third estate is very irate. They're very discontent. They're saying, well, why do we get one vote when we represent 97% of the population? So finally, the members of the third estate had a very noble idea. They said, listen, we are going to form our own government. So they form something called the National Assembly. I'll talk about that in a second. But they show up with this great plan of a new government and a new constitution for France, and they arrive back at Versailles only to find out that they are locked out. So finally, the third estate refuses to leave. They meet at they call it a tennis court, but it's pretty much like a squash or a racquetball court. And the delegates of the third estate all take an oath on this tennis court, and they vow never to stop meeting until they have a new constitution. So this is called the tennis court oath. So reluctantly, King Louis is forced to accept the changes. So the Estates General is now replaced with the National Assembly. And you need to know that the National Assembly, so put this somewhere in your notes, the National Assembly is the new government of France in 1789. And the clergy and the nobles are invited by the Third Estate. Some of them show up. And again, very grudgingly, King Louis is forced to accept these changes. However, he has a plan to dissolve the National Assembly. So by the mid-summer, May, June 1789, he sends troops into Paris with the hopes of dissolving the National Assembly. And what happens when you involve troops and gunpowder with a mob riot? Well, it's the perfect catalyst for revolution. And that's what happens next. The storming of the Bastille. A very dramatic moment in France's history and a very profound moment for the beginning of the French Revolution. So what actually is the Bastille? The Bastille is a medieval dungeon that was used to house prisoners of the king. And again, this is before the right of habeas corpus or any of the other natural rights and freedoms. So people could be arrested simply for protesting the king. So the Parisians, people that live in Paris, begin to storm the Bastille. And they want gunpowder, and they want to arm themselves to defend themselves from the National Guard that is approaching. So they demand this, and finally the commander of the Bastille gives the order to open fire, Delaunay. And as a result, 98 revolutionaries were killed. That only escalates the fighting when the revolutionaries break into the Bastille. 5 guards were killed. They actually captured Delaunay, and they are beating him up. And it's at this time that he says, "Please just let me die." And it's at that time that they sever his head. And that is the picture on the left is a image from Madame Tussauds Wax Museum of Delaunay. So they cut off his head, they sever it around, and this becomes the symbol of the French Revolution, Bastille Day. And the storming of the Bastille, and truly they burn it, they free the prisoners, they overtake the guards, and they rip it apart brick by brick. The Bastille is no longer standing, but this day, this moment, quickly becomes the symbol of the start of the French Revolution. And today we celebrate the 4th of July with barbecues and picnics, and likewise in France, July 14th is known as Bastille Day. That is when they celebrate their Independence Day. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this provides you with a very brief overview of the conclusion of the causes of the French Revolution. For your homework, you're going to need to watch the 2 preceding videos on the French Revolution, and we'll be discussing some of that material in class. If I went too fast, please watch the video again. The notes are available online in our class folder, and if you have any questions, you can always post them to me. Thank you.